Hi, it's me Jacqueline. Welcome to my channel. If you're new to the channel, then please subscribe my channel and visit my Patreon page, link in the description.
After dinner, Sam and Vanessa went for a walk in the garden. The rest of the family went their various ways, with Sofu, Masumi, Miyuki, and Sachiko sitting in the kitchen talking. After a while, Masumi got up and went to the counter by the garden window. She looked out, turned to Miyuki, and said, "Come here a minute." Miyuki got up, walked over to the window. Masumi pointed and said, "Look. Does that look familiar?" "Yes, almost too much so," Miyuki said, as she put her arm around Masumi. Sitting on the same bench that Masumi and Mike had used many times a number of years ago was Vanessa and Sam. His arm around her shoulder and her head on his shoulder. They just sat there and watched the setting sun. "Sam," Vanessa asked. "Yeah, you've never talked about your dad. What happened to him?" "I guess there's no harm, and I can tell you a little bit about it. He worked for a government agency known for their undercover operations, and one day he went away and never came back. I heard someone say that there is a star on a wall for him. And Aunt Me, who's a friend of Mom's from here in Japan, came to live with us." "So, Aunt Me really isn't your aunt?" "No, just a friend. A very good friend." Vanessa could hear the sadness in his voice as he talked about his dad. She cuddled closer to him, and they sat there until it was late. As they were walking back to the main house to say goodnight to everyone, Vanessa said, "There is something about that bench. It just seems so peaceful there." "I know. I just love it there. If I have a problem, I just go there, sit, and it seems to go away." The following evening, the 7 young people went to the Kabuki theater. As they were walking there, Kyoko was telling David and Vanessa about Kabuki, and that by tradition males played all the female roles. And that this particular family troupe practices traditional song and dance Kabuki, rather than the higher art form of Kabuki. And that the star is a teenaged boy that everyone calls Daigoro. And that he has an amazing following. Aiko whispered to Toshi, "I figured that this type of kabuki would be a better introduction for David and Vanessa than the traditional type." Toshi nodded her approval. The 7 enjoyed the performance very much. And Toshi paid close attention to how Vanessa reacted to the males dressed as females. After the performance was over, the performers mingled with the crowd. And, with David and Vanessa being the only Westerners there, they drew the attention of the performers, and Aiko translated for them. The conversation went back and forth between how the Westerners liked the performance to how the performers felt being dressed as women. Toshi also took note of this. David was a little standoffish, but Vanessa was full of questions. After the performers excused themselves, the 7 headed further into town to a tea shop. And, as they sat drinking their tea, they talked about the performance. David couldn't understand how a man could dress in women's clothes. But Vanessa thought that it was really interesting that a man could pass so easily as a woman. She said that she found it very interesting when Daigoro had said, "Many people say that the role of a woman played by a boy is more attractive because men are able to find out what makes a woman attractive. I usually observe those women in the street who are wearing a kimono. I study how they behave." Over the remainder of their stay, they visited many places and saw many things. Another kabuki performance, but this time a traditional one. They visited a Shinto shrine and Sobo's gravesite. They went to the beach. And many other things. Toward the end of their stay, Akio wanted to take them to a club for dancing and a good time. So, 2 days before they were to leave, the 7 found themselves dressed for the club and on a train heading for a nearby city. The club was a young people's club, the 18 to 20-something crowd. Sam was the first to notice and whispered to Toshi over the loud music, "Some of the girls here are guys." "Huh? Some of the girls here are guys. Look closely." "You're right." Toshi cornered Aiko and asked about the crossdressers. Akio said that she knew that there was 1 or 2 nights a month that were for kids that liked to gender bend. But that she thought that this wasn't one of them. Then Aiko asked Toshi, "Do you think we should leave?" "I don't know. I don't have a problem. And I know Sam doesn't. But I don't know about Vanessa and David. I'll ask." How about Kyoko and Taro? I don't think so, but I'll ask them too. Toshi went up to David and explained what was going on. He said that he was a little uncomfortable, but they were there to have fun and might as well stay. Then Toshi went up to Vanessa and told her about it. She said that it wasn't a problem for her, then looked around and asked which ones. Toshi smiled and sighed. They spent the rest of the evening enjoying the club, having fun dancing and singing along to the various songs. Again, with Vanessa and David being the only Westerners in the club, they drew attention. They had a number of people just stop by their table and talk to them. As each one did, Vanessa played a little game with Sam as to which one was a crossdresser and which wasn't. David did loosen up a bit over the course of the evening and was having fun dancing with the 4 girls. At the end of 2 very fun weeks in Japan, when it was time to leave, Sam and Vanessa took one last walk in the garden and one last sit on the bench. She said, "Someday I'd really like to come back here." And she kissed him. The flight home was filled with conversation about what had gone on for the 2 weeks, with a lot of kidding about the club and the gender-bending kids. The summer went by too fast. Before they knew it, Toshi was getting ready to go off to MIT, and David was in a funk. She told him that she would email him every day, and she would be home for Christmas and spring break. He still didn't want her going. Sam and Vanessa were basically within walking distance of the Georgetown campus. But what was bothering Sam was that this was going to be the first time that he and Toshi had been apart. He was going to miss his twin, probably more than David was. The drive from Georgetown to Cambridge takes about 10 hours, so there was going to be an overnight stay. Early Saturday morning, the van was packed, very packed. It looked as if Toshi was taking the whole house. It was just the 4 of them, Masumi, Miyuki, Toshi, and Sam, going. So, the twins had time to talk about many things. After a lunch stop, Sam was driving, Toshi was sitting up front with him, and Masumi and Miyuki were napping. When Toshi asked, "Have you ever told Nessa about your other self?" "No, but I've been thinking about it. You know, you really need to be upfront with her, especially if your relationship is going any further." "I know. Mom and Aunt Me gave me that talk too." "You did notice how she interacted with the kabuki performer and the kids at the club, didn't you?" "Yes, but I want to take it slowly with her. I don't want to lose her again. Just be sure to treat her extra special if she accepts you." "I know. I treat her that way now." "Yeah, your guy's side is really hard to accept. So, you had better be treating her like a princess," Toshi playfully said. "Oh, and you think you're easy to put up with." They got Toshi settled in her dorm room, and her roommate, Beth N., was a girl from California, and was already homesick. They took her out to dinner with them, and again for breakfast, before they headed home, after a tearful goodbye. On the drive home, Sam was driving again, and the 3 were talking about nothing in particular, when Masumi said, "I heard you and Toshi talking about telling Vanessa about your crossdressing." "I thought you were sleeping," Sam said. "No, I was just resting my eyes. And she's right, you do need to be upfront with her about the dressing before your relationship goes any further. And from what Toshi told me, it probably will go farther. Much farther." "It will?" "Yes, you 2 are really a couple. We've watched the 2 of you. And, like Toshi saw a long time ago, there is something special there." She's probably right. I've really been trying to figure out how to approach her about it. It just makes me really nervous. "Why? Are you afraid that you'll lose her?" "Yes, but you have to be fair to her. She needs to know before. Why not try telling her a story? I know that you 2 sit and talk for hours. Try telling her a story and see how she reacts." Or, Miyuki said, start out talking about the kabuki troupe and the club. And go from there. But what kind of story? Sam asked. "Yours. Maybe in a third-person way." Sam thought about it for a while and said, "Maybe. Just maybe." The first term of college was very busy for everyone. Sam and Vanessa had a couple of classes together, so they studied together. But the idea of talking to her about his crossdressing took a back burner to studies. He still dressed when he could, especially sleeping in nightgowns and panties. Toshi came home for Christmas break and really bugged Sam about not telling Vanessa by saying things like, "Sam, be fair to her. Tell her. And if she really loves you, as I know she does, she will accept you as you. It may take time for her to see the complete picture, but I think she will. And you tell her or I will." Sam finally decided it was time, and he would tell her the next time that they had some time alone. And that happened about 3 days before Christmas. He had been over to her house for dinner, and her parents had gone to bed early. Sam and Vanessa had gone into the den and cuddled up together in front of the fireplace, like they usually did, with her sitting between his legs and her head resting on his chest. The conversation started out as usual, just general chit-chat about nothing in particular. Sam brought up the kabuki troupe that they had seen in Japan with the young boy that dressed as a girl. They tossed that back and forth for a while, and Sam was happy as to what he was hearing from her. She thought that it was really interesting that the boy felt the way he did, and that he passed so well. Sam then brought up the club where a number of people were dressed as the opposite sex. She admitted that she thought it was brave of them to be able to go out that way and to be accepted for who they were. Sam then asked, "Honey, can I tell you a story? A happy story or a sad one?" "Kind of a mix," he said, and thought, "and I hope a happy ending." "Okay." He started out telling her about a little boy of about 11, which had been talked into dressing up as a girl for Halloween. He did it because his friend was going to do it too. And when his mother dressed him up, he looked so much like a little girl that no one knew it was really him. And that by the end of the evening that he felt comfortable in the clothes and didn't really want to take them off. Then over the next few years he had used his sister's thing, like panties and nightgowns. That the feeling had been very nice, and he felt very relaxed when dressed. And that his sister knew, but never said anything. How he had been hurt very badly by something and had gotten to the point where he didn't give a damn. He also stopped dressing. And that his attitude had become, to say the least, bad. He found out that his sister was very supportive of him after she had tricked him into dressing and going to a party. That something at that party had turned him around. That he was now back to being his old self. The sister had taken him shopping for his own clothes. And that the boy was now happy for many reasons. When he finished, she just sat there for a while in silence. She had felt his heart really pounding while he was telling the story. She then turned around, knelt on the floor between his legs, and looked at him. They looked at each other, for what seemed like hours to Sam, before Vanessa said, "That was your story, wasn't it?" He looked at the floor, then looked back up at her and said, "Yes." She just looked at him, then said, "That was brave. Telling me that story. Why? Why? Why did you tell me? To be fair to you. To be fair to me? Yes. I felt that you needed to know, before our relationship went any farther, that there was something about me that I can't change. And you want me to accept this part of you? If you can. And if I can't? I don't know." The tears started. He was beginning to feel like he had made a mistake telling her. Could it really be? She looked at him for a long time, then reached up and wiped his tears away. I could try and stop for you," he said. "You would do that for me? I would do anything for you." She moved around so that she was sitting on his lap and said, "Hold me." He put his arms around her and held her tight. She wrapped her arms around him. And they just sat there holding each other. She finally whispered, "Sam, I love you more than anything. It was so brave of you to tell me that story. And I guess I should have known. You just looked too good as a geisha at that party. But I was more interested in getting you to talk to me. You're not mad. No. You're not hurt. No. You still love me? Like I said, more than anything." He kissed her. "Can you accept that part of me?" She leaned back so that she could look at him and said, "I need a little time to let it sink in. Can I ask you something? Anything. You don't want to become a woman, do you?" "No. I like me the way I am. I just enjoy the clothes. They just feel good." She smiled and said, "I already know that you're not gay. You are the greatest lover that any girl could ask for. And with that, she seduced him right there on the floor of the den. They made long, slow, sensual love as quietly as they could. Afterwards, as they laid there, cuddled together, Vanessa whispered, "Honey, I'm glad you told me and didn't keep it a secret. If you had kept it a secret and I had found out some other way, that I would have really been hurt. And yes, I think I can accept the side of you. I thought that you needed time to think about it. I've had more than enough time to think." He just hugged her. When he arrived home, even though it was very late, Toshi was still up and on the computer. He walked in and sat next to the desk. She looked at him and said, "You told her, didn't you?" "Yes." "And?" He just smiled. "I told you so," Toshi said. "That girl is special, and she really loves you." "I know. Good night." "Good night, little brother. Sweet dreams." The following morning when Sam got up and went downstairs, he found Toshi on the phone. And it took him a while to figure out that she was talking to Vanessa. When she hung up, he asked, "What was that all about?" "Girl talk." "That's not good." "Could be." At dinner on Christmas, Masumi made an announcement that at first had everyone upset that they weren't going to Japan this summer. But when she told them that everyone from Japan was coming to Washington, the sadness went away and was replaced by excitement.
Please subscribe for the next part and visit my Patreon page for early access.